patriarchy screws up everybody.
Absolutely.
Oh my God, there is nobody that does not get screwed over by this.
Hey everyone, I'm Thais Sky. Welcome to Reclaim, a podcast for women by women on conversations that matter. Hello everybody. Thais Sky here. Welcome to Reclaim the podcast. I'm excited to be here for season 2, episode 3, or technically episode 37, however way you want to count it. I'm here this week with Graeme Seabrook, who is going to explore motherhood and worthiness with us. Graeme is so knowledgeable on how we can navigate inadequacies around motherhood. If you are a mother or if you're not a mother, I think this conversation is relevant for all of us women, especially the places within us where we carry the sense of not enoughness. So that's coming to you in just a few minutes. But first, I just want to take a moment, of course, honor everybody who is a part of my Patreon community. I always have to give a special shout out to people in my Patreon community because you all mean so much to me. We do these monthly community calls where we get together on Zoom, and it's women all over the world coming together and talking about things that most of us don't talk about, like sex in relationships, like challenges that we're having that we feel there's not space to share in our current circles. We bring it all into this community call. And it's so profound what happens when we truly witness another woman and give her space to dump out all of her problems like little puzzle pieces. And it's not our responsibility to put it together, but just giving her the space to say it all and to be together in the witnessing allows her to see her problems in a totally different way. So thank you to all of you who are a part of my Patreon, who've been joining my community calls. I see you, I honor you, I appreciate you. It means the world to me. So if you're interested in participating in these monthly calls, you can join my Patreon by going to patreon.com/Thais Sky. You can learn all about what Patreon is and support the podcast there. It is through your support in Patreon that's allowed me to do season 2 with a different cover image and a different intro. So I really appreciate all of your generosity. So I've been dealing with something this week. I've been really coming face to face with my people pleaser this week. I've been really invited to look at my codependency issues on a new level this week. And I have to give a shout out to God, universe, whatever is pushing me along this journey of life, because I'm finding that any relationship, any friendship that I've built over the past 2 years that was built on the foundation of people pleasing, of wanting them in my life because I thought that, somehow having them in my life would mean something about me. Those relationships ultimately always end up deteriorating. And that's useful for me. That's useful feedback for me because it forces me to look at, okay, why are these relationships not working out? And what's the underlying pattern? And I was really sitting with that today, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like I still have, particularly in my relationships, this deep place of wanting to be validated and wanting to be a people pleaser. And I'm curious if you have this space within you. I'm sure you do. Most of us do. And so the more that I've been sitting with this place within me that has attempted to develop relationships with people based out of validation, based out of wanting them to like me, wanting to feel like I am somebody in the world because of them being in my life. You know what I really realized again and again? I just keep coming back to this point that the worthiness wound, one of the biggest defense mechanisms that we have against feeling inadequate and unworthy is performance. I know Lindsay and I talked about performative justice and the ways that we perform in the last podcast episode, so I don't want to go too much into that with this conversation, but when we feel ungrounded, inadequate in who we are, it makes sense that we need to perform. We need to be something that we're not, right? We need to show up in a way that we're not. And so often we have completely lost who we are underneath this layer of inadequacy and unworthiness. My teacher really said it best this past week when she shared something along the lines of, sometimes who we are gets buried underneath our desires to prove our worth. And when we're not really showing up fully in our relationships, we can't build a real lasting foundation off of mutual respect. And so I'm just declaring it out to the world right now that this is where I'm going to be stepping stronger into, in developing proper boundaries and not saying yes just because I want that person to like me. Really honoring my time and my limitations and the fact that I can't show up for people in the way that they need or demand that I show up. I can only show up as who I am. And if that's not enough for them, that's not my issue. Right? The more that we stand fully in our worthiness, the less I'm finding that other people demand our inadequacy. And by demanding our inadequacy, I just mean people respect our sovereignty more when we respect our own. When we do not respect our sovereignty, when we don't respect our autonomy, when we're operating from our wound and we're feeling inadequate, it's easy for people to leverage that and to suck on that. Like they get attached to that and then they demand more and more and more. So wherever there is a person in your life who really feeds off of your time, that's obviously a space where there needs to be clear boundaries. And that boundaries need to come from a space of worth. And the more that we develop that worthiness and develop that space of boundaries, the more we will recognize that we don't owe anyone anything. I know our capitalist society tells us that we owe the world productivity, that we owe the world our worth, that we owe the world our bodies. But guess what? We don't. Just like we don't owe our health to anyone, like we don't need to be healthy. We don't owe that health. We don't owe our bodies or a certain shape of our bodies to anyone. We don't owe our worthiness to anyone. We don't owe our time to anyone. And I'm not talking about like in the practical sense. I'm talking about in the energetic sense. We don't owe anything to anyone. And so this has been my invitation, and maybe it is yours too, to look at where you've kind of sold yourself out a little bit, right? Where you got buried. You got buried underneath your worth. Underneath maybe not your worth, your desire to prove your worth. Who are you? Where did that go? I want to show up fully in my relationships because that shows that I respect my relationships. By having clear boundaries, I'm respecting and honoring the other person's boundaries. I know oftentimes clients will come to me and they'll say, I gave that friendship my all. I gave them my all and it never gave me back anything, right? But are you really giving it your all if you're demanding and expecting that person to give that same thing back? Right? Or are you giving out of a selfish need to be validated? That's usually what it is, right? We need that validation. So we give as a way of control. Because if we can control the other person, then we'll get the love that we want. So we got to look for that. We got to look for where we're demanding other people show up in a way that they're not going to show up. Can we be with the hurt of that, the disappointment of that? And then you get to decide. You to have a conversation with them and let them know what your needs are. And if they can't meet that, then you're going to have to decide maybe that person shouldn't be in your life. Or you end up having that conversation with that person and they meet you. Or you both find boundaries together. This is the beautiful thing about interpersonal relationships. They teach us the most about our potential. Instead of running away from every friendship problems and discarding friends like they're, dirty underwear, like, can you really show up to the people that are here? Instead of demanding that people prove their worth to you, can you be in your own worth? It's amazing how we see what we want to see. If we want to see that people will let us down, that is what's going to happen again and again And again, it has to be that way. So anyway, these are the things that I've been exploring, and hopefully it's resonating with you. And let's all look at the ways that we're collecting friendships or collecting relationships from the place of wanting it to mean something about who we are, wanting to be validated, wanting to be people pleasing, wanting to be codependent. And let's remember that the work lies within our desires to find our worthiness that is there. Our worthiness is within all of us. We don't have to look far, but we do have to go into some of the shadowier bits of ourselves, the parts of ourselves that we've kind of denied for a very long time. But that is the answer. All right. So let me read to you Graeme's bio and then bring her on. So Graeme is a motherhood life coach whose approach to coaching is based on the belief that you must be a priority in your own life in order to thrive. Following a traumatizing birth experience and postpartum depression, anxiety, and PTSD, Graeme began a healing journey as a mother and as a woman. Graeme's work is dedicated to helping mothers reclaim their humanity. She does this work because she believes we are living in a global culture that treats mothers as if we are inhuman and expects us to be superhuman. Oof, that's so good. You can learn more about Graeme at theproblemwithmotherhood.com. While you're listening to this conversation, I want you to be thinking about your own relationship with your identities and worthiness. So even if you're not a mother, right, what identities do you carry? And how is it attached with the perfect identity? For example, the perfect woman or the perfect mother. How are those beliefs pulling you away from yourself? And what are you willing to do now that you know what you know? All right, Graeme, thank you so much for being here on Reclaim with me. I am so thrilled for the conversation that we're going to have. It's going to be so good. It's going to be so good.
Thank you for having me. I've just been massively jealous because you've just been talking to really amazing people where I'm like, I want to talk to her. Why? Maybe I should have a podcast. Why don't I have a podcast? So no, I'm really excited to be here.
Yay. So you sent me a link. I'm just going to get right in. Okay. Actually, let me back up.
Jump in.
Why don't you share with the people a little bit about who you are, what you do, all of the things?
You mean they don't know already? No. Okay. So I work with moms. I just got new business cards created like a month ago, and they say mom dork on my business cards.
That's amazing.
As if that were a profession. But if it were a profession, that's pretty much what I do. I started at doing peer support for moms with postpartum depression or anxiety. And then I was like, I want more training and I want more moms and more of this, and ended up becoming a life coach. But I only work with mothers. So it's really kind of specialized and specific and just mamas everywhere.
Yeah. And I want to talk all about this because this is like your approach and your thoughts around motherhood is so critical. And I just need to lay this right off the bat. I am not a mother. I have 2 dogs.
Yeah.
I hear that sometimes that's somewhat similar. I also hear that has nothing to do with anything, and people are so highly offended when I even try to compare. So I'm just going to put that out there.
Those are people who don't have toddlers. Look, I have a toddler. So my toddler, your dogs are very simple. I'm not a fancy mom at all. I'm not at all cool. So yeah, no, I'm also not offended because she eats things off the floor, and she also just pees wherever she wants. And I'm like, there's multiple times that I have looked at my partner Adam and been like, yeah, no, we're good. We don't need to get a dog. We're good. We're set. Mm-hmm. We're good. Yeah. We're barely surviving this child. We don't need a dog. And our older son, is about to be 5, and all he wants out of life is a dog. It's like all he wants.
Oh yeah.
In that like really desperate 5-year-old way. Like, I don't know if you remember how much you wanted things when you were that little, but like
It's life or
obsessive, and
death. Oh yeah.
it is. It takes over your whole being, and it's like, how are you doing this morning? But I just want a dog. How is school? I just want a dog. Like, it's just, there's nothing else there, and you're like, all right, dude, okay. Well, a dog or some therapy, one of those is going to happen. Man, but I cannot have a puppy or even a grown adult dog. I cannot have a dog and a toddler in my house at the same. I cannot do it. I can clean up poop from one thing at a time.
I hear that. I hear that. One poop, one thing. I hear that.
Yes.
So you wrote an article. You wrote an article. We need to get into this article because it's so good. Okay, the title of the article is The Empty Altar, Notes on Modern Motherhood. And at the very end, all the way at the bottom, you wrote Mother-Centered Motherhood. And that's what I want to name this episode, Mother-Centered Motherhood. Because that's so good. And you wrote, it isn't about perfection or sacrifice. It isn't about judgment or competition. Patriarchy tells us that women can't form supportive networks and hold them. Capitalism tells us that we must live in scarcity and competition, and that abundance only comes with wealth. We know that this isn't true. When you stand in the center of your life, when self-care becomes a way of life and not a buzzword, you learn to lean. Not only to let others lean on you always and to give always, but to lean. Mothers can save each other. Mothers can help each other heal. Mothers can recognize each other's humanity and celebrate each other. Mother-centered motherhood recognizes that the whole mother is needed to anchor the family. Fabulous and flawed, all of her is necessary. It is choosing to do the work to heal, even when it takes time and money, even when it means saying no to people who want you to say yes, even when it means making changes that your family finds uncomfortable at first. It means placing all of you in the center of your life and of your family. It isn't one choice, but a series of choices every single day. It isn't a system that tells you what is right and wrong every step of the way, but a respect. And that begins in the self and the knowledge of your own worth. Can you choose you? Done.
Yeah. Hey, I don't know who wrote that, but that's pretty good.
I mean, that's pretty excellent.
No, this is okay. So that is like, you know how sometimes people say, I didn't write that, I channeled that?
Yes.
That's kind of what happened. This is a culmination of what I have been thinking about and working on, like on myself, with my therapist, like, and with my coach in my life, and then with women in my support groups, with women who are my clients, with mothers who are my clients. Like, this is it really is starting to pull all of the threads together and beginning to weave something. I still don't know what the something is, which is kind of, that's where the fun is coming in. I still don't know what it is going to become. I still don't know if this is going to be a new way of working, if this is going to be a book, if this is going to just keep being coaching. I don't know where this is going, but I know that mother-centered motherhood is important. I know that it is something that has changed my life and saved my relationship, which is huge. That this way of mothering could also so deeply impact my relationship with my partner, with my children's father. That's really big, because I think we just assume a lot of times either or, right? So we assume that if you're going to work on yourself, that is somehow selfish, and that is going to take away from the people in your life, you know? Even when we know better, we still have that thing in the back of our minds. It's like, oh, you're taking too much. You're asking for too much. You're not giving enough. You're taking. When really what it is that you're showing up with all of you. And there are parts of you that are needy because you're human. Like no shit, you're human.
It's interesting because I feel like men have been allowed to explore their identities, you know, for thousands of years, to cultivate different identities for themselves. Whereas women's identities have been locked into very specific roles. the wife, the dutiful wife, you know, the good daughter,
Yes.
and the caregiver of the family.
Mhm.
And so I love
Right.
that we're now entering a place where I feel like we are getting to explore different identities and we are getting to try different things. And yet at the same time, that narrative refuses to shift, that insists that we
Oh
have to
God, yeah.
be this perfect mother.
No, yeah. I mean, this is a conversation that I've been having with moms a lot lately. This is the part where people usually start yelling at me when I say this.
Ooh.
This is the part that gets everybody pissed off when I say that our mothers' feminism left mothers out of the picture.
Mm.
And people are like, what? You're anti-feminist. No, not what I said. Not what I said. And what it is that I'm almost 40. So I grew up, I was born in 79. I grew up in the 80s. The first time anybody asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up was in the early 80s, right? And so that's a very specific worldview that I have. I grew up watching my mom get up in the morning, get dressed in a full suit, and put her, I don't know if you remember, like the bright red Reeboks, like the high tops, when high tops first came out. But she had a pair of bright red Reebok high tops that she would wear, and she would put her high heels in her purse. We lived in New York. And so she would walk me to school, and then she would get on the subway. And then she would go downtown and get off the subway and go to work, you know? And so she was one of those women that, like, when you watch old movies about New York, you see all of these women in suits, these like business women in suits with sneakers on. And that was my mom. Like, that was our life. My mom had a job that she loved. My dad had a job that he loved. And yet, every time I was sick, they called my mom. Every time it was like, you know, well, is Graeme going to camp and where? That was my mom. Dentist appointments, signing school forms, talking to me about when my grandfather died, or when I first had my period, or, you know, just the person who was in charge of my life, right? My mother. Even though my father was an educator and knew way more about kids, like in general, you know, by training, right? It didn't make any sense. It never made any sense to me as a kid growing up. And I always wanted to be a mom. Like, I always wanted to be a mom. I think I was 4 the first time I was like, I want to have a baby. Babies are awesome. So I've always this has always been a thing that I wanted to do, right? But I never saw anyone enjoying it. And it's
pause. Wow. Okay.
Oh yeah, no. Nobody ever had fun.
That's it's so accurate.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's we want to be moms. We love the idea of being a mom, but but moms are miserable.
Oh God, yes. The mothers that I was around. Okay, now it's not like they didn't every once in a while have fun with their kids, right?
Sure,
we had barbecues and we had Christmas and we had times when people had fun, but it was not a fun thing to be a mother.
Right.
It was not. And as a kid, like, okay, it's either fun or it sucks. Like, children are pretty, they don't really have like a middle ground, or at least I didn't. And so I've been kind of fascinated with mothers this whole time. And I never really understood as a child why, if my mom worked and my dad worked, then my mom also had to do all of this other stuff that he didn't have to do. But she seemed to expect it the exact same way that he seemed to expect it. Nobody seemed upset about it. It seemed to just be the way it was. It's not like nobody ever sat me down and said, okay, Graeme, you have a uterus and that means you need to learn to cook. That's not, it's not that heavy handed. It's just that my mom did all the cooking in our family. My mom did all the laundry in our family. My dad was ex-military, so he knew how to do all of these things. He knew how to clean. He knew how to iron. He knew how to, he knew how to cook. He knew how to do all of these things. He just didn't.
Yeah.
Even though sometimes she was getting home later than he was. Like, it was like their feminism from the 60s and 70s and the 80s said to women who also wanted to be mothers that you could now go into the workforce and that there are all of these opportunities open to you that were not open to you before. And that's amazing. It did not address how the hell are you going to do that?
Yes.
Like, there are still only 24 hours in every day.
Yeah.
So, okay, great. Now you have this job. Now instead of just being a nurse or a teacher, and not just, but instead of only having these as your options, now you can be a doctor. Now you can be a professor. Now you can run the college. Okay, great. Well, now let's have a conversation about how we run our households.
Yeah.
Because there's a vast difference in time commitment.
It's interesting when I'm relating to my partner. It's just interesting to see where my mind goes in terms of needing to take care of things and the schedules and the arrangements. Whereas where his mind goes, it just doesn't go that way. And sometimes I wonder, like, is it because studies show that it's not biological, and yet it's so embedded in our brains from such an early age that it almost feels biological. Like and I almost wish it was biological to excuse why it seems so difficult for men to get with the program.
Okay, well, so I think there's two sides of this. Part of it is that, yeah, it is really difficult for men to get with the program. Part of it is that we have to make room for them to learn how to do this. Because, like you said, it's not biological. And you and I have been trained from birth to do these things. And they have not. And so if we want them to catch up at whatever age and stage we are, right? So if you're 50 and you've been doing this for 50 years and you're looking at a 50-year-old male and saying, all right, dude, catch up next week. Yeah, you've had literally 50 years of practice. Yeah. You're asking him to change in a week. Yeah. I am not saying that he shouldn't change. Dude needs to change.
Yeah.
I am simply saying that we have to understand that they have been as conditioned as we have.
Yeah. Right? I hear that.
So it's one of those things where, this used to make Adam like just rage. Like you could just see his whole face would get red. He'd get so angry. He was the first person who changed our son's diaper. When our son was born, I had a C-section. It was an emergency C-section. And I was just like, I was a wreck. I was on all kinds of pain meds and it was bad. It was bad. I definitely could not like sit up in a bed or lean over and change a diaper like that. I physically could not do that. And so, but our kid was still pooping everywhere. So somebody had to change the diaper, right? And hey, look, there is this grown ass adult male in this room. And so he changed the diaper. And every time a nurse would walk in and he's changing the diaper, they'd be like, oh my God, look at him. He's going to be such a good dad. Oh my God. I'm not. Sadly, that voice was not me exaggerating. And even like my dad came to visit me the day after Andrew was born. My dad comes to visit me and as he walks in as Adam's changing the diaper and he's like, look at him. Oh, he's doing great. You don't have to do anything. You're just laying in bed and he's doing all the work. And I'm like, wow, I have 12 staples, sir. Like, doing all the, okay, let me just breathe. Like, yeah. It was one of those times where I started saying like 6 sentences in a row, but I couldn't finish any of them because this was my father and all of the words were going to be 4 letters and it was going to be bad. Yeah. And there was also Vicodin. So I was all right. Like it was really okay. So yeah, and I just took a deep breath and was like, all right, dude. But Adam had to learn from the very beginning because I physically couldn't,
Yeah.
right? Um, and then I went through really severe postpartum depression and anxiety. And so there was a lot in our house that he had to take care of. He had to figure out feeding schedules and sleeping schedules, and he had to do laundry, and he had to take care of me and take care of our son because I couldn't. And so he figured it out.
Yeah.
But as I got better, as I started to heal, there were cries. Like there were times that our son would cry, and I didn't know if that was a hungry cry or a wet cry or a just I'm pissed off, come and hold me cry. And I would feel like the worst mother in the entire world. But the truth is that those are not biological things either.
Yeah.
It's not that the baby is born and all of a sudden you know, oh, this is the hungry cry and this is the I have gas cry, and that you don't. That is not magical biological knowledge. That is having heard the cry 1,000,001 times. Literally, I counted 1,000,001 times. And so you start to figure them out, right? Well, I hadn't been the person getting up in the middle of the night, so I didn't know what they were. And it took a while and it felt horrible. And I had to screw up and try and give him a bottle when what he needed was for me to do a diaper, and or vice versa, or not burp him enough. Or I mean, I had to screw up, and it was a terrible feeling to screw up with your child, with your baby that all you want to be is perfect for. But it gave me this insight into what it is like for dads. Honestly, that is what it gave me insight into, is what it is like for dads if it has been lopsided from the beginning.
Yeah.
If from the beginning you were not seen as an equal partner, or you were not asked to be an equal partner as a father, if you were not expected from the start to change diapers, to do feedings, whether it's bring the baby to mom for breastfeeding or whether it's feed the baby from the bottle. If you were not expected to do cleaning, if you were not expected to keep track of doctor's appointments and dentist appointments and all of that stuff, then when it gets dumped on you, when mom has had enough, when mom hits the wall, when mom realizes that this is bullshit and she's not going to do it anymore, and she just dumps it in the middle of the floor and says, figure it out, which is not necessarily a terrible thing to do. I'm not even saying don't do that. It's going to take a while.
Yeah.
And they're going to screw it up. They're going to suck at it. And what has to happen is that mothers can't jump back in. If Adam had seen me trying to feed the baby when what he needed was a diaper change, and he had come in and said, well, he needs the diaper change, scoot, I'll do it, I never would have learned, and I would not have the relationship with my son that I have now.
That's huge.
Patriarchy screws up everybody.
Absolutely.
Oh my God, there is nobody that does not get screwed over by this.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so one of the things, I recently taught a workshop on worthiness and the worthiness wound to a group of mothers. And it was really interesting to hear, their experiences with motherhood. And there was almost a unanimous kind of feeling in the room that there was a deep place within them that felt like they were not living up to the mother that they feel like they should be. And I'm sure you hear this all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And so what do we do? How do we begin to navigate, how to be authentic and real and messy in the experience when there's so much noise from our loved ones and from culture, from our, mommy groups, everywhere around how it should be done?
Okay, well, first, I have to tell you, I have a tattoo. I have a sleeve on my left arm. It's a bunch of different flowers that I don't explain to people, and the word worthy.
That's amazing. I
The
didn't know
T,
this. Oh my
yes,
God.
it's really big. It's really big on my arm, and it is the way that it's written is so that I can see it. It faces in to me
Mm.
because I don't need to prove to anybody else that I'm worthy. I'm the one who needs a reminder on a regular basis, multiple times a day. And so I literally got it carved into my skin
I
as a
love
reminder,
that.
and I still struggle with it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Huge tattoo. Still struggle with it. That's really why I called the article, titled it "The Empty Altar," is that there's nobody behind the judgment. There really, really is nobody behind the judgment that we're not worthy, that we're not doing this right, that we're not doing enough, that there's something in us, some intrinsic thing in us that is broken or wrong or can never be what our children need. There's nobody on the other side of that argument, because it is every mother that I know that has that feeling. It literally is all of us. So that's the first thing to understand, is that it's not just you. Like, we have this feeling, and then the shame comes in that we're even having the feeling. And so then we don't talk about it, right? But I truly believe that every time we are honest, every time we speak our truth, we create space. Honesty creates space for others to also be honest. So that's one of the first things that we can do, is just say it. Just say, I don't feel like I've ever been a good enough mother. I don't feel like I will ever be a good enough mother. I don't feel like it is possible to be what my children need or what my child needs. Just say that out loud. And there are going to be people who are going to be assholes about it. But I promise you, there's going to be at least one other mom who either publicly or slides into your text messages or your direct messages or something and is like, me too. Yeah, that's, yep, that's totally how I feel, and they might be whispering, and it might be this mom just tapping you on the shoulder and just nodding. It might just be somebody catching your eye and you see like, oh, it's not just me. Right. And then honestly, we turn inward. We show up as all of ourselves. We bring it all. Because the truth is that the mom is already in the center of the family. She already is. Like, the mom is the person who is running the family. You're already running your household. You're already the circus master. You're already the spoke of the hub of the wheel. You already are. So you can either be performative, right, and just be constantly trying to juggle everything, to keep everything going, to keep everything running, or you can show up fully, and it can become an exchange where things are flowing into you and flowing out of you. I think of that more like a fountain, those amazing, gorgeous fountains in Rome, that where they're like, 3 and 4 levels high, and the water just spills out of them, right? Instead of that whole, you can't pour from an empty cup. I don't really want to be a cup. A cup is really small, and I'm not small. Like, I'm not a small chick. So I think of myself more as that fountain. I am plugged in to the earth, to my family, to my spirituality, to my physicality, to my wants and needs and desires. I am plugged in, and those fill me. So I am constantly filled. And that is what is pouring out and splashing everywhere. And that is what my family drinks from. And that is what my friends get from me. And that is what my clients get from me. They get this amazing overflow instead of dregs on the bottom of a coffee cup, But that took years. So I also don't want like anybody who's sitting and listening to this and being like, oh crap, now I have to be a damn fountain too? What? it's so much work. Like, no, you do, this is the metaphor that works for me. This is what I have found that works for me and my life and my family. And this is what I have found through therapy and coaching and building networks of support of other mothers.
Mm-hmm. So there's two big ways that I see this sense of unworthiness really take hold. The one is I've had I've had a child, I've had my children, and I don't love them like I thought I was going to love them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't connect with them the way that I feel like I should connect with them. And then the other one is, oh my God, it just slipped my mind. No, it was right there, Graeme. Oh my gosh.
And then it's just gone. It's just gone.
It's just gone.
It's just gone.
I can't even claim, mommy brain or whatever.
Right?
All right. Two ways that I see unworthiness really play out with moms not loving their child, or God, what's the other one? Okay, well, we'll just go with that one for now.
You crack me up. So here's the thing about the love. I actually just said this. I was talking to Alexis today, and she was my friend Alexis, and she was talking about getting a cat, and she said, I don't know if I love cats $50 a month more, because it would be $50 a month for her to get a cat in her added onto her lease in her apartment. And I was like, dude, I don't love my kids $50 a month more, but I still had them. That's obviously not true, because they cost way more than $50 a month, and we still kept them. But it is not this like amazing love that I feel all the time, or I'm just like, oh my God, you're so perfect. Oh my God, I love you every day. No. And for the entire year that my son was 3, I was just like, why did we do this? This was the worst idea ever. Why did we have a child? I should not be a mother. We have to give him to somebody. I cannot do that. Like, this is going to kill me. I'm not going to survive. And I know my daughter's 2.5, and I can already feel it coming. Like, 3 is coming. It is. It's like Game of Thrones. It's like 3 is coming. Like, that is how I feel about it. 3 to 4 is my kryptonite. I hated it. And what happened was I actually, like, I wrote a Facebook post, or I tweeted. No, it had to have been a Facebook post. I wrote a Facebook post one day, and I was like, I hate 3-year-olds. Mine, yours, everybody's. 3 sucks. And I was just, because I was done. I had it. And that post blew up. There were so many moms who were like, no, 9 is the worst. 9 sucks. I'm going to throw all 9-year-olds away. And then there were other people who were jumping in, like, they hated 5, and they hated 2, and they hated 12, and they hated everything after 10 is just pointless. Like, your child needs to move out at 10 years old. All of the tween and teen years, no. All of these things were coming up, right? And what I started to realize was that I did love my kid. I just hated this stage that they were in. I just don't like 3-year-olds. Like, at all. And that's okay.
And I also think what you did that was so brilliant was you gave yourself full permission to be exactly where you were.
Yes.
Like, you lamented, you let it out, you expressed, you had the space, well, the bravery to cultivate the space, but then also the space to be like, hate it.
It sucks so bad.
Like, to let it out instead of it like being in your soul, eating you alive. I
seriously thought about starting a GoFundMe just to get a nanny for just the year that my daughter's 3. Just for that 1 year. Because this family is not going to, oh my God, it's coming. It's such a horrible, But here's the thing. Some people don't have as strong a reaction as I do to 3. I don't understand them, but they exist. And then, so there might be moms, and I meet moms like this a lot, who are like, I really, I really had a hard time bonding with my baby. I really had a hard time. Like, I just don't feel the way that I thought I was going to feel. And then you meet them 2 or 3 years later and their kid is 6 or 7 or 8. And they're like, oh my God, my kid is hilarious. My kid is awesome. Have you met this? This kid is fabulous. They didn't realize that they just didn't like babies or didn't like toddlers or that they just didn't like preschoolers, right? They didn't realize, like, dude, I'm just not a baby person. Until their kid hit a stage where now it's a stage that they do like, that they do enjoy. For me, that has been for our son being 4. He's so freaking cool. He's cooler than I am. He's cooler than you are. He's cooler than everybody right now. He's hilarious and ridiculous, and I love it. Adam hates it. Adam is struggling so hard with 4. He is really just, oh man, he's having a really, really hard time. But he was okay through 3. Like, all the 3-year-old stuff that pushed every button that I had and made me be like, why did we even have this child? He was all right. The 2 of us got so lucky in finding each other, you know.
But what you're saying, really, Graeme, what you're saying is allow yourself to be complicated, messy humans.
Yeah, yes. You did not at any point surrender your humanity when you became a mother. You did not. And one of the exercises I always get my clients to do is to make a list of all of the things that they believe about humanity. So make a list of all the things that you believe that humans need in order to thrive. So food and shelter and time and attention and love and space and safety. And I don't know what's on your list. Everybody's list is slightly different. So make a list of all of the things that you think that random general humanity needs. And then take a look at your life and see if you're actually getting those things. And if you're giving those things to yourself, if you are denying those things to yourself, most of them are. Because if they weren't, they wouldn't be working with me, because they'd be like, oh, I'm doing great. I don't need a coach. Right. You know? And that means that you're not living in alignment with the things that you believe.
Yeah.
Right? If you believe that humans need respect and you are not being respecting yourself, then either you don't believe that you're human or you're living out of alignment with your beliefs. And we can work on those.
Yeah. Well, I still can't remember the other.
I love that. I do this all the time, so it just makes me happy that other people do it too.
So that just happened. So that's embarrassing. And I'm not editing a single thing out, so everyone can see my imperfection
I love it.
A human non-mother.
Like, seriously, it makes me so happy. I'm like, yes, she's not even a mom. She totally did it.
But you know what's so funny? You know, I've never wanted to be a mother. Motherhood is just not my thing. It's just there's nothing about children that I like, blah 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 blah. That's starting to change.
Ooh.
Like, I'm starting to see children and be like, I want one, you know, kind of like their M&Ms. Like, I want one, you know.
Okay, well, in 6 months I will have one that you can have, because she'll be 3 and she will be available. Like, for real.
But it's so cool how, if we just give ourselves permission to just be where we are, things evolve. And they change, and our opinions change. And it's like, we've got to give ourselves that grace to, because imagine if I had berated myself and made myself feel like I'm a bad person because I didn't want to be a mom for, 28 years or however old I am, right? Then that would have robbed me of the sovereignty, the freedom that I just didn't want to have children. And now that that's starting to change, and I'm starting to really want one and feel like I can see myself being a mother, like, that's a new exciting thing.
Yes.
But we have to be okay with the phases, no matter what that looks like.
Yes, you have to meet yourself where you actually are right now.
Facts.
Where you actually are, not where you thought you would be or where you want to be, but where you actually are, and see yourself clearly. And that's another thing I think that can be really, really hard when we do become mothers, is that it gets really hard to see ourselves clearly because we begin to see ourselves through the lens of our own mothers. We begin to see ourselves through this like imagined lens of our children, through the lenses of our partners and our friends. Like we take on all of this judgment that is not ours to carry. It's not. And we pick it up and put it on our own shoulders over and over and over again. And learning to put that down, learning to just say, wait a minute, this is not mine. And I have enough of my own shit that's actually mine that I have to carry. I don't need to carry my mom's. I don't need to carry my sisters or my friends, or, I don't need to carry anybody else's. That can be a bit of a revelation, and that it doesn't make you a bad mom, and that, God, it is the perfect mother that is ruining motherhood.
Yes, that's what I found. That's what I found in that workshop. Again, I have very little experience with mothers, so you can imagine that if I pick that up within 40 minutes, meeting these women, I can only imagine what you navigate with your clients every day. I mean, the perfect mother.
She's killing us.
Killing us.
She is killing all of us. And here's the thing. If your children had a perfect mother, your idea, whatever your idea is of a perfect mother, and as soon as I say perfect mother, every mother that's listening conjures, there's a picture in your head. Like, you can't even deny it. If your children had that mom, she would damage them.
Yes.
I'm telling you, it is not good for anybody. Your children need to see you screw up.
Yes.
So that they know what to do when they screw up. They need to see you have a bad day. They need to see you make mistakes. They need to see you work really hard to repair them. They need to see you fail sometimes. They need to see all of the imperfections. They need to see you lose it and scream and yell, and then have to be like, oh crap, I'm so sorry. Okay. And then figure out how to make amends, because what they have just learned through that is that mom is human. My actions, if I push her, my actions have consequences. There are things that I can do that hurt her and make her life harder, right? That yelling is never the answer, but that I was safe the whole time that she yelled. So anger does not equal fear. And that there are ways to make amends. And I am worth her apologizing to. That's like huge lessons.
Yes.
All from you getting pissed off that nobody folded the laundry.
Yes.
So
it's interesting because I'm in grad school right now to get my master's in psychotherapy, and we were talking about some childhood development stuff. And many of my cohort members work in education, and they were talking about the importance of teachers losing their cool in front of their students.
Yes.
And how it's actually really important that children see adults be angry and fight, with each other. And I've never thought about it because, again, I'm not a mother. So I've never thought about this, but I can see how if we deprive them and we always try to be cool and aloof and unaffected, how are we then teaching them how to navigate the complexity of their emotions?
Yes. And their emotions are huge, and they are swimming in them. These are little people with huge emotions, and they don't know what to do with them. They don't know if they're okay. And there are so many mothers that I work with now who are terrified of their anger and of their children's anger, because they grew up in either abusive households or in households where anger was never expressed. So they don't know what to do with it. They don't know what to do with their child having a temper tantrum, because no one ever raised their voice around them when they were a kid. So they have no clue what happens.
Yeah.
it is not at all helpful for your child. I'm not saying, go scream at them every day. Like, don't do that either. But I mean, one of the things, I started this work with PPD moms who have just a massive shit ton of guilt that we carry around from being sick. And one of the things that I've realized is that it's not anything to feel guilty about. And it might also be a superpower that we have. We have walked through so much darkness, especially if you ended up in multiple years of therapy, like some of us did, that we also have this awareness and the sensitivity and the language for our emotions.
Yes.
This is how my 4, almost 5-year-old, he said to his sister the other day, "You are not expecting my brownies right now." That's not what he meant. What he meant was, "You are not respecting my boundaries." It's way funnier the way he says it. And it took me, I was like, how is she? What? Are you? Huh? And then I realized, because she was crawling all over him and she was just being massively annoying because she's 2 and that's what she does. And he had asked her multiple times, "Stop touching me. Get down. I don't want to be touched right now." And she kept doing it and said, "You are not expecting my brownies."
You're not expecting my brownies. Oh my gosh, that is so precious.
Nothing is funnier than that. He's the best kid ever.
The best kid ever.
Because he's not 3 anymore. That's the only reason.
That's the only
That's the only reason. He knows about respecting my boundary. That's me. That's therapy talk. That is from my millions of years of therapy.
Yeah. See, those millions of dollars are going to something
useful. Look, so many dollars. But like him having different feeling words and him being able to know the difference between angry and frustrated and sad and frustrated. Like for him to have that is because there were so many times that I was sad and I had to just say to him, "Mommy is really sad right now." He knows that adults cry sometimes. He knows that he's seen me had panic attacks. Like none of that was fun for me. None of that was a good time. I don't want to do any of it ever again. But I do know that was not, it wasn't damaging. It was not horrible.
Yeah.
That because I was getting help, because I was actively getting help, I was able to turn around and explain each of those instances and over time walk him through it so that he understood what was going on. Mothers have to heal ourselves. We have to focus on our own healing. We have to focus on our own humanity. That is how our families are going to thrive.
Yes.
That is how. It's us focusing on ourselves and taking time and attention and spending money and inconveniencing others and all of those things we think we're not worthy of. We've got to do it.
Yes. I feel like I could talk to you about this for forever. This has been so nourishing, and I know that our listeners have gotten so much just permissions. I feel like this entire conversation was Graeme giving one big permission slip, and I so appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one thing that I say to everybody.
Yes.
Like my little signature thing. And I think because you do so much worthiness work,
yes,
it would work. Okay. So I just want everybody to take a deep breath and really hear me when I tell you that you were born worthy. You were born worthy of time and space and love and respect and care. Your worth is intrinsic and immutable. And nothing that you have done and nothing that has happened to you from the moment of your birth until the moment that you hear these words coming out of my mouth can change that. You have been and always will be worthy. That's your permission slip.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.